It is 93 degrees. Today is November 22nd. It's the day before Thanksgiving. And it's 93 degrees. I just got back from Indiana. It was in the 40s. Things move just a little bit slower in Indiana. And no offense to Indiana, because I love Indiana. I love my family. I love my friends. I love going back and visiting. To give you a little bit of an idea, I took this camera, I put it in the middle of the road, in the middle of the street, for 20 minutes to make a time lapse, because I knew the chances of a car coming down the street were not likely. So while you guys check out this time lapse in Indiana, I'm gonna head to 7 Mile Casino. Let's go! Just got to the 7 Mile, and before I head in, I want to cover some accounting real quick. This is the start of week 4. After 3 weeks, I was up around 7,400. I was able to get in a session last night. I played for a little over 6 hours. I started the game at 11:30, and for about 4 hours, the game was on life support. We never really got more than 5-handed. It was on the verge of breaking the entire time. The game wasn't good. Early during the 5-handed play, I opened ace-queen offsuit in the cutoff. Small blind 3-bet to 120. The big blind overcalled, and the big blind is a very, very loose recreational player who just loves to see flops. And the small blind, he's an aggressive player. I think he's probably a winning player. He's in college. I don't really know a lot about him other than he is fairly aggressive. I call, and we go 3 ways to a flop of ace-10-5 with 2 hearts. He continues for a bet of 250. Big blind folds. I have top pair. I don't see a lot of choice here other than calling. Turn comes the 7 of diamonds, and he thinks for a really, really long time, and he bets $610. This is a really, really tough spot. This is what makes poker poker. When we have to basically determine how wide this guy's value range is, then based off that, decide whether we should put more money in or just fold the hand. There's definitely times where I will move it all in, protecting my equity against ace-high flush draws, other flush draws. In general, I do that against either really, really loose aggressive opponents or opponents who are really, really good and are going to be balanced with a linear range. They'll have a lot of ace-high flush draws. They'll have king-high flush draws. They'll have bluffs. Against those opponents, I'm more likely to stick it in. But against an unknown recreational player, even though he does seem a little aggressive, he is a younger kid, I'm just gonna fold this spot and not really know if I made the right decision or not. Moving on to the next hand, this is against the same villain. He opens in early position to 30. It folds all the way to me in the small blind, and I call with ace-queen offsuit. Big blind folds, and we go heads up to the flop. Flop comes down Jack-10 deuce with 2 diamonds, and I check. He puts out a c-bet of 40. This is a spot where you could go either way. You could definitely check raise here, or you could call. I decide to call, and we are off to the turn. You know what? I'm going to borrow a line from one of my friends, Andrew Nemi. I'm sure a lot of you guys watch him. I love what he's doing with his vlog, by the way, and I love the term that he's using, favorable. It's just a great word. It's a great word to describe nutted turn cards like this. So anyways, yeah, thanks Andrew Nemi. Turn comes favorable for us, and it comes the king, the offsuit king. So we make the stone cold dead nuts. It's always nice to make the nuts. I check. He puts out a bet of 110, and I'm definitely going to raise on this board. This is the type of board where he's going to have a lot of top pairs. He's going to have a lot of 2 pairs. He's going to have a lot of combo draws. He's going to have a lot of diamonds. He's going to have a lot of straight draws. He's going to have a lot of pair plus straight draws. Just so many hands that he's going to continue with when I check raise here. So when I put in the check raise to 380, he thinks for a really, really long time, and he calls. The river comes the 5 of diamonds, completing a flush. And this is something that I talked about earlier when you are against an unknown opponent, and in general, you view them as someone on the looser side. I am going to continue to value bet here, because just because the diamond comes doesn't mean that he has a flush. What's interesting here is sizing. Because if the opponent is a really thinking player, I have to really balance my sizing with wanting to get value. So going big enough to get good value, going small enough to get called by worse hands, but yet not going too small where he can turn a blocker into a bluff. Where let's say he has the ace of diamonds and the king of spades, for example. So this is a very, very challenging river to navigate. I don't like checking because you just miss too much value by checking. I settle on $640. I think it's in the sweet spot of the amount where I can get called by sets, 2 pairs, hands with high absolute value, and a size where he's not going to bluff raise me. So he thinks about it for a really, really long time again, and he raises all in. Frustrating. It's around 1800 more to call. He just has the nut flush here all day. There's nothing I can do. I'm going to confidently lay this down and just know that he had the nut flush here. So me and this villain have been battling, and this is where the hand of the day comes up. I'm in for 4,500 and I have around 2,800 in front of me. So I think I'm down around 1,800 at this point. I look down at ace king of spades in early position, and this is obviously a spot where I'm just going to raise it up to 30. Guy on my immediate left who has me covered calls, and the button puts in a re-raise to 130. This is the same villain. I'm starting to realize that he's a little bit more aggressive than I initially thought. I decide on the flat call here, out of position. This might not be the optimal way to play this hand when we are so deep, given that my hand strength is very, very strong for a squeeze on the button. Guy on my left now snap raises to $530. This hand's getting weird. Now the villain on the button thinks about it for a long time again. Enough time for me to get out my camera and take a quick video at the table. Like, this guy tanks a long time, but obviously don't want to call the clock on him because I'm still interested in what's going on in the hand, and I don't want to speak up or do anything that could give off any kind of information. So I'm patiently waiting, and he decides on the call. We're sitting here with ace king suited. If you want to factor in game flow, opponent types, how much certain players are up or down, if someone's emotional right now, if you want to factor in all of these things, this same spot will never, ever, ever happen again. So ace king suited, what do we do here? 530, call. I decide to call. I'm never going to fold this hand, not for 3-1. And the reason why I decided on a call is because the guy who back raised, this is a very, very polar type raise. It's just a raise that doesn't make a lot of sense. You don't see it very often. So it's just going to be a very polar type situation for this guy. So I decide on the flat call, and we go 3 ways to a flop of ace, jack, deuce with 2 clubs. So we are sitting here with ace king in a 4-bet pot with 1,600 in the middle. I check. The 4-better continues for 500. The villain on the button thinks about it for a really, really long time. Like I said, a theme with this guy. And he makes the call. What the hell do we do now with ace king of spades? I have about 23 to 2,400 behind. Ace plus flush draw is not an option. Nobody's going to have that. This is such a unique situation because our ranges are so narrow now. To call 530 pre-flop 3 ways in this game, and then to call a flop bet, obviously someone has ace king here and someone could have pocket jacks, but there's obviously a ton more combos of ace king and ace queen. I think ace queen is usually a fold, but I think that the guy on the button likely has ace king, and the guy who bet 500 probably has queens. I'm not really sure. He could have jacks. This is a really, really tough spot, but given that it's a 4-bet pot and I have ace king suited on an ace high board, I did not call $530 pre to fold this. We are going to stick it all in and hopefully not see the Helmies snap call. So we go all in. The guy on my left thinks about it for about 15 seconds and he lets it go, and the button doesn't snap call. So now I am very, very happy when he doesn't snap call. He goes into the tank for a long time, and I can tell he's leaning towards call. It's obvious that he has ace king here. We're going to win a big pot no matter what. He asks me some questions. In general, I don't think it's ever a good idea to answer these questions, but I'm very experienced when it comes to these types of things, and this line of questioning doesn't really faze me, doesn't really make me nervous. While he's in the tank, he asked me again, he's like, will you please show me this hand? And a lot of times when you say yes, they will call. I decide to make him a deal, and I say, I don't really want to answer this question, but if you're willing to tell me what you had on the hand where the diamond came on the river and I bet 640 and you moved all in, I will show you this hand, but only under that condition. That's enough for him to say, okay, I fold, let me see it. I show it, and I could see by the look on his face that he had ace king, and he was a little bit frustrated that he didn't call, but at the same time, he's like, you know what? I'm okay with it. He's like, you definitely could have had jacks there. Then he says, by the way, I had the nut flush, which I already knew that anyways, but it was my bargaining chip to get him to fold so I didn't have to share the pot. So we take down an over 3K pot without ever seeing the turn or the river in this game. And that is a really, really big pot to not go to showdown in this size game. After that, I cashed out. After 6 hours, we won around $500. We're up close to 8,000. We're midweek 4. I'm heading for my last session at 7 Mile before I head to Vegas on Thursday night. We go see some friends in Vegas. So one last session. Let's get it. Today was oh man, I had a really rough day today at the poker table. It hurts, definitely hurts. The wheels came off in so many aspects. I ran really bad. I played bad in spots. I was too loose. I was too aggressive. I was too passive. I basically was too everything. I was in the game for 8,000 and we cashed out $1,830 something. So that's around a $6,200 loss today, which absolutely obliterates my chances for this 30K in 10 weeks. I got 6.5 weeks left. I basically need to win $28,000 in the next 6 weeks. It's just life. So it always can't work out the way you want it to in life, especially in poker. I don't know how many times I've had my ass handed to me in poker. First hand of note, I'm in the big blind with Queen 10 of spades. There's 2 limpers, one in early position, one in later position. Small blind complete, and I decide to check my option here. The flop comes down Jack 9-8. 2 hearts, so obviously flop the nuts. I check it. Under the gun limper makes it 35. Person in late position folds. The small blind calls the 35, and I check raise to 150. On this board, this is a slam dunk check raise because of all the draws out there, all the hands that are going to continue. So the original bettor calls the 150, and the small blind calls 150. The turn is the 10 of hearts. So this is obviously not a good card for me. Small blind checks, small blind checks. I'm in the big blind. I check. The guy in early position now puts out a bet of 250. Small blind calls. So it's pretty apparent that the small blind has a flush. The person in position probably also has a flush. So I'm just going to get out of the way here and fold it. Hands end up showing down, and they both had flushes. A little while later, I look down at ace queen offsuit, folds to me in middle position. There's a guy that posted behind me $10. I go ahead and raise it up to 40. I add $10 for the guy behind me. Guy that posted calls, small blind calls and the big blind calls, and we go 4 ways to the flop of Queen 9, 3, 2 clubs. It checks to me and I bet 90. The guy in the small blind calls, so we are heads up to the turn. The turn is the Jack of clubs, not really a card that I like here. He checks and I decide to check it back, thinking that this card is really, really good for his range, but I think I like bet a little bit better even though the club does come. This is a card where he's definitely going to pick up turn equity on a lot of his holdings that he would have called. In the river comes the 10 of diamonds. So now there's 4 across. He checks and I check it back and he has Jack 10 off suit. So he's going to take down this one with runner under 2 pair. Short while later, I open ace 8 of diamonds in early position. One caller in position and the button 3 bets to 130. I call. The other guy in position folds. So we are heads up to the flop of ace jack 6 rainbow. The one thing that's really interesting about this hand is after I called the 130, I checked in the dark and he grabbed chips and threw out $330 before the flop came out. I don't really know what to make of that. When I flop an ace top pair, I'm definitely not going to fold top pair. I call. Turn is the queen and I check again and he checks it back. And the river comes a jack, I check, and he checks it back. And he says, I have ace king. Another hand that I lose. This is all within the first 30 minutes of me sitting down. About 15 minutes later, I'm dealt ace deuce of diamonds in middle position, and I raise it up to 30. There's a guy in the cutoff who makes it 100. Small blind thinks for a while, and he calls 100. The small blind is the same guy that had ace king in the previous hand. I close the action and call the extra 70. So we go 3 ways to the flop. Flop comes ace king 9 rainbow. Small blind checks. I check to the original raiser. The original raiser checks back. The small blind starts to reach for chips immediately, just how he did in the ace king hand. And he throws out 330, the exact same amount that he had just thrown out 15 minutes before, when the turn comes to 7. I'm sitting here with ace deuce. It's probably a spot where I would call normally, but exploitatively, I had just seen this guy do the exact same thing with ace king earlier. He overcalled a bet. It's likely that he has a hand like ace king, ace queen, ace jack suited against a good opponent, well-balanced opponent. This is never a spot where I'm ever going to fold, but I go ahead and make the fold. The guy in position folds, queen's face up, and the guy in the small blind shows pocket 4s confidently. Like, haha, I bluffed you guys. So this is not good. Things are not going well. I just folded top pair to this spaz. At this point, I'm like questioning everything that I know about poker, and you'll go through moments like this when you play enough poker. Obviously a terrible fold. About 30 minutes later, it folds to me on the button. I have queen jack suited and I make it 30. Small blind folds, big blind re-raises me to 120. He has about $1,000, and because he has $1,000, I could probably just fold here, but not in the folding mood, obviously, and he's the type of player that is going to 3-bet really wide, so queen jack actually could be ahead of a lot of his 3-bets here. So I go ahead and take a flop, and the flop comes down 8-5-3, 1 spade, the 8 of spades, and he continues for 140. This is a spot, again, where I can fold, especially because he only has $1,000, but I make the call because I have a backdoor straight flush draw. Yes, that's partly why I called. Okay, I'm being very ambitious right now. So the turn comes the jack of diamonds, so I make top pair. At this point, I just love my hand. I'm not going to fold to this guy. He continues for $310. I take my time. I call. He has $480-ish left. So there's virtually no river card that could come where I would ever fold. Possibly an ace, but that's maybe the only river card that I would fold. So when the river comes to 4 and he takes his time and moves all in for 480, I call pretty quickly. So he flips over queens, and now we are about 90 minutes into the session and I'm down $2,500 at this point. So a horrible start to the session. So I went a little bit back, and hand comes up where there's 3 limpers in front of me, and I look down at 5-7 of spades on the button. This is a spot where I definitely can overlimp, but I'm not in the overlimping mood when I'm down to $2,500. So I go ahead and bump it up to $60. Small blind calls, 2 other guys call, and we go 4 ways to the flop. Flop comes down 9-7-5 with 2 clubs and 1 spade. So I flop bottom 2. There's not very many turn cards that I'm going to love, and I need to bet for value to protect my hand. When it checks to me, I do just that, and I bet $130. Small blind, after some careful thought, makes it $410. Everyone else folds back to me. Definitely have to call here. The turn is the 8 of diamonds, putting 4 across. So he thinks about it for a really long time and he checks. I think the best play here is to just check it back and see what develops on the river. The river is a really, really bad card. It's the 8 of clubs, so it counterfeits me. Brings the flush, and he now bets $680. I fold, and about 2 hours later in the session, he told me that he had pocket fives, something that I definitely can believe. We're down around 3,000 now, and things are not looking good. I battle back. I'm probably down around 2,500 again at this point. When a hand comes up where early position makes it 30 and gets 3 colors to me, I'm on the button with Queen Jack suited, and I elect to make the call here. I think I like 3-bet a little bit better because it gives me the best chance to win the hand, but as played, I call with the Queen Jack suited. It's a very good multi-way hand, so I don't hate a call here. The big blind calls, so we go 5 ways to the flop of Queen, Queen, Deuce, 2 spades. I'm on the button with trip queens, and it checks to a player in middle position, and he jams all in for a little bit over $300. Folds to me, obviously make the call. Everyone else folds. I ask him, do you have a flush draw? He says yes. I say I have a queen. No worries for him. The spade comes right on the return. It's the 10 of spades, and I don't improve on the river. So I ship off another $400 or so to put me back down around 3,000. As you can tell, there's not a lot of things that are going well in this session for me. Before I tell you this hand, I need to put a disclaimer out there and tell you to never, ever do this. Stick to the basics. Play fundamental poker. You know, I like to pride myself on never tilting. I am the kind of player that I hold my emotions in very, very well. Even during this hand that comes up, most people wouldn't be able to tell that I'm a little heated on the inside because I just look like I'm playing poker. Like, you can't really tell that I'm down. Can't tell if I'm up. But on the inside, I'm really trying to make something happen here. And I am going with game flow dynamics when it folds to the button here and he makes it 30. Small blind folds. I look down at ace-6 offsuit in the big blind. We are 3,000 effective, so it's a spot where I could just call for sure. This hand doesn't really play well out of position. It doesn't have very good playability in general because you can't really make straights, can't make flushes. When you make top pair, it isn't a good top pair unless you make a top pair with a 6 and then your hand's vulnerable on the turn. So it's just not a good hand in general. So when he makes it 30, I decide to raise it up here. Like I said, disclaimer, and I make it 140. He thinks about it for a little while and he now makes it 410. And when he makes it 410, I go into the tank here and I'm leaning towards a fold, but then I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I have an ace in my hand. So I think if I put in a 5-bet here, I know you guys. I know you guys are all yelling at the screen right now. Don't 5-bet here. But I think if I put in a 5-bet here, he's only going to continue with a hand like aces or kings or queens. And maybe ace-king. And he's going to fold like everything else. I block ace-king. I block aces. I have some equity against kings. So it's not overly crazy to 5-bet bluff here with a button versus big blind dynamic. I think if he had aces or kings, he would likely flat rather than 4-bet me. So with that in mind, I go ahead and stick in the 5-bet. I don't want to price him in, so I make it $1,140. I think what it accomplishes is that he's only going to continue with a hand like aces, kings, or queens, possibly ace-king. He ends up making the call after some deliberation, and at this point, because I know his range is narrowed down to aces, kings, queens, possibly ace-king, I am done with the hand. I'm not going to put any more money in. This was a one-time freak-out moment. He has it, you know, like I just know that he has. He called a 5-bet. He has it. I'm done. Thought I was done. The flop comes 3, 4, 5, rainbow. Why did you do this to me, poker gods? What am I supposed to do now? Oh. I have an open-ender. I have 8 outs to make a straight. I have an ace if he has kings. So you add another 3 outs there. So we're looking at potentially 11 outs versus his kings versus his queens. If he has aces, we still have 8 outs. If he has ace-king, he might actually fold to an $1,800 all-in. So I think my only choice here is to move all in here and hope that he folds. And if he doesn't fold, realize 32% or 40% or whatever it would be if he had kings. So I move all in, and when he fairly quickly makes the call, I'm pretty sure that he has aces or kings here. Board runs out queen and then a king. So ace high is not going to take this one down, and I'm going to ship over 3,000 to the other guy, which puts us down $6,000. Oh. That's pain. That's maximum pain. So, yeah, that 5K chip that I showed you in the thumbnail, he gone. We're going to have to rebuild, and I'm going to take the night to hang out with Olga, my dog. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Going to see my family. Going to regroup. Going to reevaluate. Going to refresh my mindset. I appreciate all the support, you guys, and this is really hard to film this because definitely didn't want to film this right now, but I'm glad that I did. Everything's going to be okay. I'm going to put a link to subscribe, and then there's a little bell. If you could hit the subscribe button and then the bell, I would really appreciate it. All the feedback that I've gotten so far has been amazing, and I really, really, really appreciate everyone that has taken the time to watch and has been in my corner. It means a lot. Thank you guys for sticking with me. See you soon.